Lamborghini has announced the Huracan Sterrato, the last Huracan they're going to release. The Huracan, of course, is Lamborghini's V10 supercar, and the Sterrato is the off-road or dirt road edition of it. Now, I currently own a Lamborghini Gallardo Superleggera, so I thought I would give my thoughts on the Sterrato. And it's an overwhelming sense of curiosity and slight amusement. I think the Sterrato is cool, I think it's interesting, I think it's absurd, but I'm not entirely sure who it is for. No one is going to take these cars off-road, because the cost of running it into a tree, or the cost of even scraping the paintwork, is so large that it simply isn't worth it. So I don't entirely know who is going to use it for its intended purpose. Now that's all well and good if it's a collector's car, right? If it's a collector's car that is going to appreciate in value, then it can sit there as a garage queen. It can basically sit there kind of occasionally pottering around the streets. However, they're releasing nearly 1,500 units of this car. This means it isn't that limited edition. It is a bit limited, but it's not super limited. It's not necessarily as special as the STO, for example, even though it has some neat features. Furthermore, Lamborghini's releasing so many special editions that when you've got enough special editions, nothing becomes special. We had the Performante beforehand, then we had, for example, the STO, and we also have, at the moment, the Technica, and now we have the Sterrato. Then we have various iterations along the line. For example, we had the Flu Capsule one, which was their fluorescent coloured car. Then we also had the Evo coming out toward the end of the lifespan. So we've got so many different iterations and so many different model variants that it sometimes or somewhat diminishes the specialness of some of these so-called special editions. That notwithstanding, the Sterrato does have some neat features. So what exactly are those technical specifications? Well, the Sterrato does look a little bit underwhelming, at least to begin with. It packs 610 horsepower, which sounds fine enough, but it is less horsepower than the STO, the Technica, or the Evo all-wheel drive. It is comparable in the same as the Evo rear-wheel drive, one of the lower-powered Huracans at the moment. Furthermore, it's one of the slower Huracans. It goes 0 to 62 miles per hour in 3.4 seconds, whereas the Technica is 3.2 seconds, the STO 3 seconds, the Evo all-wheel drive is 2.9 seconds. So if we're looking at the engine being a little bit on the slower side, then what are they doing to make up for it? Well, they're doing a few things. Firstly, they have all-wheel drive with locking differential, which is useful if you're looking at going off-road, if you were to ever do this in this car. Furthermore, they've raised the ride height by 44mm to 179mm in total, which is a relatively large increase for those of you who need to get over potholes or speed bumps. Furthermore, they've made the car slightly wider. It's 30mm wider at the front and 34mm wider at the rear. Again, for those of you who have a parking spot that is far too wide for your existing Huracan. Essentially, they've made the car more inconvenient for road use. There is some underbody protection. However, there does not appear to be a full skid plug. Rather, there's just a little bit of undercar protection you can get. Furthermore, they have lights on the hood, which I guess is a nice addition. However, they also note in their fine print is that these have not been homologated for road use in all markets. There's also a rally drive mode, which is nice to have. I don't know how many people will ultimately use it, but it is obviously an interesting and neat feature. The exterior of the car does look quite noticeably different from the standard Huracan. It has flared fenders, albeit with a slightly Rocket Bunny type appearance. Furthermore, they do have those hood lights, which again are quite nice. You can also get the roof rack on it, which again adds to the neatness of the appearance. Whether it really adds any utility is a separate question. It also has the vent going into the engine, which again is kind of cool, but it isn't quite as cool as the one on the STO. Nevertheless, there are some neat cosmetic features to make the car stand out. Lamborghini's marketing spiel is also classic Lamborghini. They say, the first of its kind, the Huracan Sterrato explores a new form of driving pleasure, designed to push the envelope where the asphalt ends. The super sports car is equipped with a dedicated iteration of the LDVI, the Lamborghini Integrated Vehicle Dynamics System, featuring specific strata and sport calibrations and introducing a rally mode. Like a work of art, it represents the leading edge of innovation. the super sports car concept imagined in a radically different way. Notably, however, Porsche had recently announced the 911 Dakar, and also the Porsche 959 had existed quite some time ago. So this is hardly a new idea, but nevertheless it is innovative for Lamborghini, and certainly Ferrari and McLaren are not doing exactly this type of model. They also note about the exterior, which again classic Lamborghini says, the Huracan Sterrato has an adventurous spirit that mesmerizes you the moment you set eyes on it. Every detail is a statement of its daring attitude. It is 44mm higher than the Huracan Evo to ensure greater suspension travel, and the track width has also been increased. The iconic air intake on the rear hood accentuates the car's sporty, audacious character. The front underbody protection, sills and wheel arches emphasize the car's muscular stance. They note about the interior. The Huracan Sterrato interior reflects the feel like a pilot philosophy adopted for every Huracan model. The titanium rear arch, 4-point safety harness, carbon biashore sport sheets, and aluminum floor mats invite the driver into a space made for adventure. The driver has full control of the functions from behind the wheel, with displays inside the vehicle offering intuitive access to information. Essentially, Lamborghini is very good at its marketing spiel, although it does sound kind of like a puff piece. I find it more amusing than I do persuasive. So this then begs the question of, would I go out and buy a Huracan Sterrato? And the answer to that is probably not. A lot of the Huracans are depreciating price at the moment, and Huracan Evos are going to start depreciating because there's quite a lot of them. I'd personally rather drive a normal Huracan Evo all-wheel drive than I would a Sterrato, because I live in the inner city and it is much more convenient for me to own an Huracan Evo than it is a Sterrato. I like the fact that the Sterrato is patently absurd. I like the fact that it makes no sense as a car. It's a car that would never actually be used for its intended purpose. I like the silliness of the vehicle. However, I would like it even more if it were more limited edition and therefore more likely to actually hold value better than it would at 1,500 units. Given the sheer number of Huracans out there, that is going to slightly cap how much these really will trade for. This is especially so given that the Huracan replacement is supposedly going to be a V10 hybrid, i.e. they are going to retain the V10 from what we can gather at the moment. Now, if they retain the V10 in the next iteration, then the Huracan is no longer the last V10 that Lamborghini is using. It might be the last V10 that is naturally aspirated, but the actual gain from it being naturally aspirated versus hybrid assisted is not entirely clear to me, so it's not totally clear why one would necessarily leap out to buy a Huracan if they're still going to be using V10s, and potentially improved V10s in the future. Still, it's an interesting model. I could easily be proven wrong. It might in fact skyrocket in value. It might be super in demand. People might think that it's such an absurd, interesting, neat thing to own that they go out and fork over tons of money for it. However, I'm not entirely sure that I will be one of them. Nevertheless, maybe my mind will be changed. Maybe I will talk to the Lamborghini dealer and magically be given an allocation of this car, and I might be persuaded that, in fact, it is really significantly more interesting than I'm thinking it will be. Maybe in my market there will literally only be one of them delivered, and if I were to get access to that literal one of them in my country, then maybe that would be a massive plus. But that doesn't appear to be the case.